Hello there, Site 42 staff, as well as those of you from the greater SCP Foundation. And welcome to another Dr. Sherman's Office Hours, a subsidiary of the anomalous broadcast from Site 42. As always, I am Dr. Theron Sherman, Site Director here at Site 42 of the SCP Foundation. And as I have done for over the last year and counting, because that's right, the daily stream streak remains strong, I'm here to open my office doors to you, the SCP Foundation staff, to answer your burning questions about this dark and mysterious place of employment we call the SCP Foundation. So whether you have questions about the anomalies we contain, the staff who contain them, the groups of interest who try to stop us from containing them, or hypothetical containment procedures about anomalies that fall outside of the SCP Foundation's purview, perhaps they're from a different multiverse or pataphysical narrative level, i.e., fandom. Either way, we are here for approximately a little less than the next 2 hours. Approximately 1 hour and 50 minutes should be today's stream. And today's stream is going to be a bit tricky. As you can see in the stream subject title, today's going to be a rough one. But before I can reveal why, let me start with a little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, CD23, congratulations on being the #1 most punctual member of today's Containment Hazard Assessment team, i.e., congratulations on being first chatter. Alongside you, Dr. Wesker, Puppet Boy, Chester Factory, Froy, Senior Researcher Alex, Dr. Frogman, Silent Follower, Kitten Kinsey, 369 Destroyer, Sean Taggart, hey, it's been a while, hope you've been doing well. Everybody I just named, thank you for being here punctually, and thank you for being here as members of Site 42 on YouTube. We appreciate your membership and your service. Furthermore, 100 stars, Steven Universe fan, Kelmsford Invictus, The Ant, it's been a while, hope you've been doing well, Dax Rays, X Gamer, Willow Faith, Nomad of the Nebula, and Anna and Sora Wolf. All of you, thank you for being here punctually, and thank you for being here today, just for being you. Now, for today's sponsors, we have, of course, 2 days remaining to reserve your Dr. Sherman Site Director Edition plushie. If you do not place your order at the link that is pinned in the chat, or the link that is in the description of this VOD, within the next 2 days, you will never be able to get this plushie again. It is a one-time offering. Get it now, or it will be gone 5 ever. That's one more than 4 ever. That's how you know we're serious. So, there is your sponsor number 1. Sponsor number 2, reminder that our friends of the channel, Keter Labs, are ramping up their SCP Containment Breach the movie push on their YouTube channel right now. There is the final trailer for SCP Containment Breach the movie, which is a pre-launch page for their Kickstarter. We have 3 days, 4 days, 4 days until the Kickstarter opens up. We need to be ready to share this to the high seas, to everywhere possible, so that we can get a live-action SCP Foundation movie in theaters. The level of collaborators that Keter Labs has brought into the game, of which I am not at liberty to discuss as of now, but I am freaking hype, and you should be too, and I cannot wait to tell you when I am allowed to tell you. But suffice it to say, prepare yourselves, Mobile Task Force Psi-42 codename Signal Boosters, because boosting this Keter Labs Kickstarter is what we are here to do. And just like SCP Galleonics team, SOM Studios, I do believe victory is in our grasp. So, glory to Keter Labs, glory to Mobile Task Force Psi-42, codename the Signal Boosters. With all of our housekeeping out of the way, welcome to today's stream subject. So, maybe you should skip this stream. It is going to be pretty dark. Why would I say such a thing? Of course I want you here. But I do not want you here if it will be detrimental to your mental health. It is important that SCP Foundation staff members especially take great care to only deal with anomalies that will not trigger them in some way or another. We are wise enough not to just say suck it up and put you on a project that might cause you to have a mental break, which might cause a containment breach. And so security protocols are very strict about this. Today, we are continuing on our journey of reading the SCP unofficial contest, This Is My JamCon. In case you are unfamiliar, This Is My JamCon was an unofficial contest on the SCP Wiki where SCP authors swapped song recommendations and then wrote SCPs based on them. We are now at having read through numbers 1 through 10 at number 11 on the track list, Carmine Violante Almost Dies, by author Katya Strangelove. When we go to the page for this article, / tale is what it really is, we get an adult content splash warning. This article contains descriptions of sexual acts, features non-consensual sexual acts, description of self-harm, description of suicide, features sexual, psychological, and institutional abuse within a marital relationship. Like a rated R movie, if you are age 18 or above in which to read such content, then you may press continue to start the process. Here in this stream, I am adamant to remind you the SCP Foundation is an adult community. You must be 18 years or older to join the site. You must, because there will be extreme sexual content and extreme gore. Therefore, I cannot control who is in this YouTube chat. I can't mark it for adults only, which means we have to go on the honor system. If you are an adult and you are capable of understanding and intaking this story to your own benefit, best of luck to you. If you are not 18 or older, I recommend either you get a parent's permission if you are close enough, like a rated R movie in the United States, you can purchase a ticket if you are under the age, if you have a parent's permission. Otherwise, you should probably sit this one out. Now, this text is rather long, and it is broken up into 4 chapters. So today's stream is I'm going to read one section of the article, then we're going to break for a little bit of Q&A. Then I'll read the second segment, and then a little Q&A. Third segment, and so on and so forth until the article is complete. Hopefully we can complete this within the next hour and 45 minutes before my next meeting. Now, the membership messages, the donations, those will be taken care of during the general Q&A. So, oh, and one more thing. there's been a challenge in this stream of reading This Is My JamCon articles, where I personally, having been a dance teacher, a wedding singer, and several other types of musical professions, attempt to guess the song the article is based on. Now, in researching this article a little bit to see what I was getting into, to see what I should tell you about today, I accidentally spoiled myself as to what the song is, so I will not be guessing. But suffice it to say, I didn't know the song and I wouldn't have gotten it anyways. So we are 11 and 11, 11 out of 11 for giving me no chance to guess the songs. There are 27 contest entries. I just want one. Give me one SCP authorship. Jeez Louise. But all right, Site 42 staff, I am hitting the continue button and we are beginning segment 1. This is the beginning of the very content warning laden article. It has a table of contents. Apparently there are 6 chapters and an incident report. Furthermore, this article contains a content warning for depictions of blood, gore, suicidal ideation, severe, homicidal ideation, severe, necrophilic ideation, mild, depictions of mental illness, references to sexual assault, and verbal abuse. Author's notes. This is a companion tale for SCP-9940. While it isn't 100% required reading, I recommend you check it out. Well, we ain't doing that today, guys. We're going right in blind. As I've heard many people say they cannot/don't want to read my articles in one sitting, I've chosen to include a table of contents for the sake of convenience. That is very kind of you, but we will be pushing through this to the best of our ability. So, Carmine Violante almost dies is the name of the tale. Let us begin. This takes place in July of 2002. Parties: Dr. Barricada Violante, Department Director Carmine Violante. Section 1 begins. Honey, wake up. Carmine rasped, pulling me from the unconsciousness by a shaky hand on my shoulder. As he trailed it down my arm, I heard a deep, wheezy breath. Bashka. Barricada, please. Calling me by my full name was a habit rather unlike him, reserved only for the times I refused to listen. Its use, so soon after I'd done all he'd asked for, set a match to the kindling inside me. No more than a few hours prior, I'd fallen asleep at his side, with my lower half variably covered in diluted blood and semen. Starting quick. Despite my exhaustion, I'd been unable to sleep, barely able to imagine how I'd ever managed to slough off a bleakness that stained far deeper than the fluid it produced. For what felt like hours, I stared at the ceiling, wishing for some form of confirmation that I'd ever move on from what he'd done to me. Predictably, none presented. Barricada. I groaned and turned away, hoping he'd realize that I was desperately trying to return to sleep faster than it would take to acknowledge the hell I was trapped in. My head pounded and every muscle ached from exhaustion. Opening my eyes had revealed a burning sensation, to go with the patches of irritation on my cheeks. I squeezed my eyes shut until I saw lights. I would have done anything to stay numb. There's a typo here. I would have done. Typo there. Desk, if you could get that fix, I'd appreciate it. But when he grabbed my arm just a moment later, I knew I could no longer wait in silence and hope he would resign himself to sleep. Fuck off. Can't you just leave me alone? I snarled. Baby, something's wrong. He spoke with a fearful lilt in his voice, softer than I'd heard it since the last time he thought he had to lie to me. I need you to help. No. I really... I love you. Memories of the night previous flooded back. The pills. The pain. An erection covered in blood and attached to his motionless body. He told me he loved me then, too. They were memories that took up space, ones that overflowed until the room turned small and suffocating. Under their weight, his voice was miles away. I don't care. I paused to take in a deep breath. You know I fucking hate you after last night. Even for how much I'd come to tolerate, Carmine's depravity had sunken too low. I could only hope that acknowledging it wouldn't make things worse for me. I know, but please, Barricada, just... He trailed off into forced exhale. Just what? Anger flashed heat through my body. I sat up in one fast jerk, head turning before my body could follow. I wouldn't bother to deny that I had hoped it was truly life or death. If anything, just so it might be worth disturbing what felt like the last few moments of peace I'd ever be granted. Despite the dimness of the room, the blood demanded my attention. It dripped from the corners of his mouth and down his chin, forming viscous pink froth when he breathed. My breath caught in my throat. What? Why are you bleeding? I exclaimed, my still groggy state keeping me on the edge of certainty that what I'd seen was truly before me. My vision blurred. I rubbed slimy, congealed tears from my eyes, only to be met with more pain. I cursed, closing my eyes. I'd forgotten the dried blood and flaky remnants of fluid that clung to my fingers. Bashka, he whispered, commanding my attention to confront a scene that just barely registered as reality. The largest bead of coagulating blood had traveled just a bit further down the side of his face. I don't... It's coming out of your mouth. I spoke in a tone of trembling panic, taking in a shaky breath once I'd forced the words out. Without waiting for a reply, I leaned down. Placing my head to his chest, I heard his heart race and air rattle in his lungs. Coaxing his mouth open, I looked inside and found nothing but red, bubbly saliva. His breath smelled like copper and commissary rebranded cigarettes, a combination of what was expected and what was abhorrent. You have to help me, he demanded. I love you. Don't worry about he wheezed. Last night. I'll never do it again. Manipulative empty pleas, like breathing to a man like him. He panicked and told me he could feel bloody bile rising in his throat when he gagged, yet I couldn't help but be transfixed by the way his teeth looked outlined in crimson. Sure you won't. I shook my head. You don't even know what you did to me. His brows furrowed when I looked up, for just a second before his expression changed. Eyes wide, expression blank, on the verge of a scowl if I looked close enough. Did you... He paused. Did you do something when I wasn't up? It was an accusation more brazen than I'd have expected, one that cut through my stupor like a knife. What? I sat up in near disbelief. I know last night was a lot, but you better tell me if I did something. Did something to you, you're asking. I spat. Maybe a side effect of your stupid medication. I did what you fucking asked for. I grasped at my last semblance of restraint just as it was torn away. Segment 1 completes. Okay, so we're starting with fluid and anger. That's where we are right now. Fluid, anger, and confusion at the end of section 1. We are now in the content warning free section for a time. I am returning to the chat for general Q&A for a short time, at which point we will return to the story. Let me catch up on the donations and member messages first. Researcher Taggart, thank you for your 11 months as a level 1 researcher here at Site 42. We appreciate your membership and your service. Let us pray it's cute and cuddly, right? I don't think anything happening today is going to be cute and cuddly. Amber, thank you for sending a floating heart to the Containment Hazard Assessment team. I'm sure they require some love right now. Researcher Wesker, thank you for your 1 month as a level 1 researcher here at Site 42. I finished that experiment, sir. And the results? Are we sure this is an SCP story? Because this sounds like the novels I've been reading lately, not gonna lie. Well, we did have that problem with the anthology, and the that kid from Marshall Carter in Dark, who we followed for a little bit, who witnessed the succubi getting skull fucked. So, you know, there's a lot of there's a darker side to the SCP Wiki if you know where to look. Getting what, Lamau? Yes, in case you weren't here for Anthology back in October, SCP Anthology 2025. I believe it was the third story in Anthology, was the story under the auspices of Hode, SCP 9790. Yes, SCP 9790 follows what's his face? Chrysophilius Scooter Marshall, also known as Skitter. Chrysophilius Scooter Marshall, also known as Skitter, is possessed by an anomaly and bought a lot of really expensive 0.0001%er kind of things in order to be greedy on the anomaly's behest, and learned it from his father, obviously Marshall of Marshall Carter in Dark, and one of the Marshall's clients had a meeting where they were talking about skull fucking a succubi. So yes, if you want more information, 9770 is there for your degenerate interests. Undead Nuclear Gamer, good to see you in the chat. Congratulations on what is it? 18,000 subscribers that you have now? Gamer YouTube. Oh, you're over 19 now. Undead Nuclear Gamer, if you're not familiar, is another Shorts and Stream SCP Foundation creator here on YouTube. And so you can get some good comedy skits if you are interested here. Returning to the chat. Low Key, thank you for your 4 months as an overseer here at Site 42. We appreciate your membership and service and the leadership you're bringing to help us cure the scourge of the white names. I'm sorry, Department of Para. What? Ryza Director K just got all the files finally sorted and he's so confused. We are all confused at Ryza. Well, I do need to run through this article we're seeing here. I do know that there's an incident report at the end, and so I will have a little more details at the end, but we're going to have to slog through some dire shit along the way. Dr. Sherman, are you pressing the red button or the blue button from that one Twitter poll? One button says nobody will die. One button says people will die if more people press this one. If you don't press the blue button, you are a psychopath, and I look down on you a little bit. Everyone's trying to twist themselves into knots how, oh, if you're self-interested enough, then everybody will press the red button. Not everyone will do everything. You cannot trust humanity to all get on the same page. And therefore, you have to take the option away from them, which is why we press the blue button in this house. Question, was there a cross test between 053 and 035? Intern Peer, why would we do that? 053 is a child that makes every person near that want to kill it. And 035 is a mask that kills whoever wears it. Why would we cross over those two? There's no... Why? What are you thinking to test? Intern Mata, my right eye is still under the effects of the allergen. I pet the dog without my allergy medicine one morning. This is why I'm so strident on cleaning my hands after interacting with puppy interest of 42. One mistake, and I messed up for days. Now, chat. Charlie, Puppy of Interest 42, codename Charlie, is out on a field mission right now, so we will not be having a visit during today's stream until the end if we are lucky. Low Key, thank you for your first donation of today's stream, as well as being a member. Grab yourself a banana split on your way past the commissary. Sir, we're having trouble figuring out SCP-055. Do we have a 055? Surely we do, because there's an 054 and 056, right? Low Key, you need to take your Nestix. You are forgetting that we have an 055 again. Head over to medical if you need to acquire some. Stop rubbing it, Dr. Sherman. Yes, I know. I'm trying my best. Don't bring attention to it if we can help it. Dr. Sherman, if given the opportunity, would you lock up Santa? Well, intern blocks, we have 5 different Santa Clauses as SCPs. And of that, most of them are uncontainable because Christmas magic, blah, blah, bullshit. But if we could lock them up, we most definitely would. All right, Site 42 staff. Content warning resumes. We are returning to Carmine Violante Almost Dies for Section 2. Reminder, the content warnings are for gore, sexual content, non-consensual sexual content, all sorts of fucked up shit. Suicidality, homicidality. Lots of bad things in this article. We're making our way downtown. We're walking fast. Their faces pass and we're homebound. Be careful. Section 2. For the past 7 years, my legs split at his command. At first, our union was inextricable from my paralyzing fear of containment. But over time, it became a sick form of love that gripped me unlike any other. I'd fallen victim to my own prurient nature, and all that was left was to acquiesce, to yearn for him to use me, to do with me what he may. It was something of dependence, a pillar to support myself on, no matter how tumultuous our union became. Eventually, the pillar crumbled. SCP-9940 was yet another chain to bind me. It was a new leash Carmine quickly learned to use to keep me at his feet. And even when I'd already fallen to my knees before him, he didn't stop pulling. Just before he succumbed to the sedatives, he cuffed our hands together, ensuring that saving my own life would strip me of my morality, pulling me down into depravity until we were close enough for him to drag me down further. In his sick game, I could risk death, or I could take it as he'd wanted. With blood dripping down my legs and pain radiating from my core, I chose the latter. It took 17 minutes to save myself, far longer than I ever imagined I could withstand. The agony was no worse than the tortuous awareness that every time I forced myself to sit up, I'd have to impale myself again just a moment later. So deep, it felt like suffocating. I say a photograph, but this isn't really a photograph. This is a somewhat rough textured picture saying the blood itched like bug bites when it dried. I tried to count how many times I'd done it, to drown my pain in pride for how much my body could take, if anything. Alas, every time. Oh no! I accidentally moused over the photo, and I found out that it becomes a photo. If you mouse over it, it becomes visible. Duly noted, you creepy fuck. That surprised me. I was not expecting that. Where was I? Alas, every time I doubled over and retched from the agony, the last number that stuck with me was gone in an instant. I remember balancing myself on his chest, focusing on how the pressure on his ribcage made his breath stutter. Sitting up and looking down only to see flushed skin and pubic hair matted with blood through distorted, teary vision. At its worst, it felt like he had crossed the barrier of my dilated cervix and claimed my barren womb for himself. For all I knew of my affliction, he likely had. I don't know how many times I came dangerously close to vomiting. The most shameful part was how I clung to his body after, crying, with the fabric of his shirt held so tightly in my hands that I thought it would rip. How I kissed his forehead, how I never knew when to stop. In a haze, I impaled myself again, soon after the pain subsided. It was little more than a mindless I was little more than a mindless automaton with no direction, resetting to default. I was no longer being hollowed out, but I still felt so empty. Empty to the point at which I worried whether I'd even abated the anomaly at all. I knew I had, but mortal fear got the better of me regardless. New blood smeared and dried blood flaked, but never once did I think of stopping. Perhaps I only did it to feel something normal, I told myself as guilt filled me until I overflowed. The ruse managed to last until I shuddered and gasped, reaching a dull, pitiful end. Not because it felt good, because it happened, and because it happened. It corrupted me from the inside out, just as he wanted. End of chapter 2. We will now return to chat for general Q&A. Java name. Yes, the content warnings are very dire on this article. Run for the hills if it is required for your mental health. Dr. Sherman, is the eye getting better? Slightly, slowly. It's much less painful in red than it was previously, but it's taking its sweet damn time. I would really like it to get over with. Intern Maximum Gamer. The SCP story we are reading is a tale as opposed to an article. Now, it is related to the SCP 9440, or sorry, 9940. It is related to SCP 9940, but the tale that we're reading is called Carmine Violante Almost Dies. Dr. Moonston, we are currently 34 minutes into stream, and we are adjourning in 1 hour and 20 minutes. So, also remember, Containment Hazard Assessment Team, the stream etiquette means you should pay attention when the desk of Alto Clef, our blue name moderator, speaks. The desk warns you when there are content warnings. The desk tells you what story we're reading. The desk corrects you when you break a rule so you don't do it and get banned. The desk sometimes tells funny jokes. All of these are reasons to read when you see a blue name in the chat. I'm not itching, I'm just pulling at the eyelashes a little bit. Is there an SCP that is a book and pen that turns fiction into reality? Intern Blocks, I'm unfamiliar with an anomaly like that, but I wouldn't be shocked if it exists. I do know there is a permanent marker that if you write an adjective on it, then whatever you write on becomes that adjective. So if you write blue on someone's arm, their skin will turn blue. If you write strong on someone's arm, then they will become much stronger. SCP-9592, codename The Magic Marker, is that. Fix Fishy, thank you for your first donation to today's stream, and thank you for making the effort to go through the Ko-Fi, which, as we all know, only takes 3% of your donation as a service fee, whereas YouTube Super Chats take 30% of your donation so that Daddy YouTube gets their cut. So we definitely appreciate you making your donation go further by going through the Ko-Fi. Please grab yourself some angel food cake on your way past the commissary. Saw the stream title and knew you were covering Katya's works. Remember when I recommended you read 9980, Dr. Sherman? You summoned intern Fix Fishy again. Oh boy. Yep. Wow, that stream subject does is Katya our resident oh dear god, trigger warning, author of the moment right now? Is that how it is? Looking into SCP-9980 again. And that too is Katya. Oh boy. Danger author. What's the topic about? Intern Glitchy. We are in a Q&A segment right now, but we are going back and forth between Q&A and reading a highly disturbing, gory, rapey SCP article. And so, we are going back and forth, therefore there are heavy trigger warnings for this stream for that reason. Dr. Sherman, can I please see SCP-999 following the end of this stream? Shark Nerd, I do believe that there will be a rampant rush to sign up for 999 visitation at the end of this stream. I am certain of that. So get your sign up early. Neverwhere, thank you for your first donation of today's stream. Please grab yourself a submarine sandwich on your way past the commissary. Hi, Dr. Sherman. I'm surprisingly not stuck in the electrical closet. Have we any peach nectar, or did some scientists steal my supply? Well, I mean, if you like the canned stuff, then the commissary has some. We use it for the Bellini ball. So, yeah, you can go to the commissary and get some peach nectar if you want. Okay, Site 42 staff. I hope you're... yes. Site 42 staff, right before we go back into the reading, which we are about to do, so remember, trigger warnings, content warnings abounds. Do remember, the Desk of Alto Clef is our moderator. They are not a telephone to get to me. It is, you can talk to me in the chat. I will respond to your messages as I see fit, as I see them at all, with how many people we have in chat. But it is not worth your time to get Desk to relay a message to me unless it is incredibly important to stream moderation. That is the only reason otherwise. Dean Cass, thank you for your first donation to today's stream, as well as being a member. Grab yourself a tuna fish sandwich on your way past the commissary. Hello all, I survived the Mother's Day brawl that breaks out at my work every year. The flowers are fine, I'm exhausted. Well, I do hope that you are, stamina-wise strong enough to survive this stream. Otherwise, like the stream subject says, you should leave as we go back to the gruesome story. So, with that, we are returning to the gruesome work, Carmine Violante Almost Dies, Chapter 3. Not anything else. Please tell me you didn't, he whispered. Even in his state, he still felt the need to interrogate me. All he'd done, and all he dared ask whether I had been the one to hurt him. Another sick game to pull me down even deeper. Didn't what? What could I have even done? I snarled. Didn't what? Answer me, Carmine. I dug my nails into his shoulders. Honey, get your claws off me, please. He softened his weakened voice, but I could hear him growl underneath the artificial saccharine rot. Come on, it hurts. Didn't what? My eyes met his. Stop. What? What do you think I did? Answer me. I'm not well, honey. You're hurting me. If I hurt you, you know about it. I tightened my grip, moving my hands closer to his neck without thinking. You almost killed me. Maybe I fucking should, I spat. His breath hitched in his throat and he thought he could hide it. Honey, you don't mean... He coughed, and a red spatter formed constellations on my face. I wiped the blood from my eyes, paying no mind to how it burned. Red streaks stained my hand, blood that didn't yet flake. I didn't mean it, he said. You always hurt me. You always do, you know it. Barricada, you have to help. Then we can fix this, please. Feeling myself slip past the point of no return, I drenched my impulses in deep crimson hatred and released them without thought. What if I just let you die? Stop! Barricada! I said I was sorry. He raised his voice, adrenaline flowing through his veins. I could still hear the tremor in his voice as his eyelids twitched. The dim beams of light that reached his face were just bright enough to reveal the fear in his eyes. No, you didn't. You lied! Tears ran down my cheeks as I was overtaken by heartbroken rage, almost panting, trying to take in air. He retched, spitting up blood that flowed down his chin and onto his shirt. The shocked gasp he let out pulled some back into his lungs, sending him into a coughing fit. What if I just sit here until you drown in your own blood, Carmine? What then? My voice broke. Tell me why I shouldn't. What else could I do? I could cry. I already was. I could listen to him scold me like it hadn't been him who's kept me trapped. I could let him blame me and taunt me and own me until I broke, until I saw nothing but red. Perhaps I wish it had been me who made him bleed until he saw death over his shoulder. I licked my lips, tasting the blood that his cough splattered onto my face. It was almost instinct in a way, how my tongue emerged as soon as I realized the splatter was within its range. Perhaps a product of my own Davite blood, linking to SCP-9140, codename Perestroika. I feared, trying and failing to hold back that part of myself that wanted more. Without a conscious thought, I ducked my head, licking the drops that cascaded from the corners of his mouth. Bashka, you're really scaring me, honey. I ignored him, licking more of it from my fingers, then going for the darker blood that coated his chin. I was well aware of how depraved, how disgusting it was, but I couldn't bring myself to care. It made me feel powerful, made me feel alive in a way I had learned to forget, in a way he'd stolen from me. Like my former self could be resurrected by means of an elixir, one that tasted like forged iron and painted my tongue red. I still feared becoming what the Foundation saw of my species, what they sought to contain, but the apparition of what he'd done overshadowed my worry. I was not an inhuman savage, born of ancient blood. I was no danger to modern polite society. I was the animal he made to fit the cage he'd lock me in. Don't do this, he warned, voice weakening. The beginnings of a reply, why not, died in my throat when I realized there was no answer he could give that would satisfy me. Because I loved him? Not anymore. Because I'd miss him? Doubt it. Because he deserved to live? Laughable. Oh, weird. So, we are, we're scrolling down in the text and then it gets really dark and hazy for a second. We're truly going into something a little weird here. So, let's keep it going. The momentary realization of how little held me back from something so final made my breath hitch and my mind swim in circles. It shouldn't have been so close to my grasp. I froze, staring at the wall to stave off the vertigo, eyes unfocused. What if I did? Adrenaline would run through my veins as his words became sparse and his consciousness faded. Would he plead for me to do something as the coagulating blood clogged his throat? Surely he'd regret what he'd done to me, but why? Because he sorrowfully neglected his chance to show me a better side of himself? Or simply because he placed himself in such a position? He'd cornered me too tightly, flown too close to the sun, and for that, the cost would be death. Perhaps he blamed me, as he had the moment he called my attention to the blood he had spilled, claimed that I'd caused his affliction, that I'd given up. He'd be right, yet I would refuse to cry until it was the last thing he'd see. Yes, I'd give him one last gift, a chaste, open-eyed kiss on his bloody lips, tears falling to his face from above. No earlier, he could never see me turn away. I wouldn't dream of letting him feel anything but my intense gaze as he died. If I dared avert my vision, it would be to him as if seeing such a thing would destroy me, almost as if he'd won. One last breath, and I'd finally be certain that the victory was all mine. I'd bask in it, watching the light drain from his eyes, likening it to an exorcism. His gaze was always so strong, so authoritative. It alone had the power to bring me to my knees. I imagined an uncanniness in seeing those eyes so vacant. I'd seen them turn dull before when he was fully sedated, but dull wasn't empty. Unconscious, his eyes still twitched in their sockets, tears still gathered in their corners. Impossible when life flowed through him no longer. With a deeply buried sense of sorrow, I'd hold his eyes shut, finding something gut-wrenching and imagining them drying out for lack of moisture. With my fingers around his neck, I'd wait for his pulse to slow, then disappear before I'd dare kiss him more deeply, to tell him that I loved him before licking the blood out of his slack, pliant mouth. Only when he could no longer witness me, nor punish me, as there would be no him left to speak of. I wouldn't be myself, not truly. I'd be trapped in the night before, when I was forced to desire his motionless body. Perhaps I'd do so again? Thinking about how it would be the first time I'd ever gotten so close to him, entirely on my own accord, would make my stomach churn and my vision go blurry. That's not true, I'd think, looking back to all the times I'd clung to him, to how much I loved him. But was that really all me? I'd know the answer, but alas, I'd be too guarded to accept it. I had a fantasy for a year or two, one where he was better. I thought of it often, so often that I let it become an obsession. Eventually, he beat the hope out of it with his every backslide. Proven woefully incapable of change so many times, I simply forced myself to forget about it. The fact that the closest to it I'd ever get was only granted by death was not one I'd allow to traverse my mind for long. The blood in his mouth would make me sane, I'd reason. It would keep me from thinking about how dreadfully alone I'd made myself. Heavens forbid it would take until I climbed on top of him to come to my senses. If I did, in a momentary loss of reason, I could only hope the realization that his lungs no longer took in air would be too much for me to reckon with. Even the idea of such an unnatural stillness in a body still warm ought to be enough to make my skin crawl. I could only hope that it would be in the moment. That it would in the moment. Yet I'd be so far from myself. Yet I'd all be so far from myself. I already was. Then we have a picture here
We have would I laugh or cry, clicking on which, could I even tell anyone? So we hitting that blood pretty deep. Ooh, changing lighting, creepy. Why you gotta be so interactive like that, article? Frickin' A. It keeps moving. It keeps moving when I don't expect it to. I keep not expecting the SCP article to move, and then it moves. Frickin' pictures. How much more could I truly take before everything came crashing down? My morals, my desires. What was I willing to do to delude myself into thinking I was doing anything else? To keep myself from dwelling on how I'd been the one to let him die. Until that point, there was a single unspoken answer to the question of what I'd do for him. Anything. Perhaps my biggest fear would be the difficulty of such a change, from one breath to the absence of the next, for acknowledging it meant acknowledging that he was never coming back. Eventually, some semblance of sanity would find its way back to me, even if it took the likely form of disgusted hatred for the wretch I'd become. Trauma does things to a person, makes them do things they'd never dream of. I console myself as I pulled away. But no matter how many words of reassurance I conjured in my mind, the full-scale realization of what I'd done, what I'd just been doing, would still make me back up so fast I'd nearly fall off the bed. Dreadfully, even if I did, the handcuffs chain would catch me. Sooner or later, some part of me knew I'd be forced to reckon with the fact that our bodies could be no more than 5 feet from each other. Alas, letting him die in my arms would do nothing to the chains that bound us together, both of steel and of the gaping cavern that would tear me apart from the inside, should I not grant entrance to the very first soul willing to save my life, no matter how much I hated it. That was, of course, assuming I'd get that far. I'd have brought myself no closer to escape, nor to summoning help. I'd have done nothing to bring my phone to my hand, nor bring help to our door. That's a typo, but I don't know what the author wants there. I'd have done nothing bring my phone to my hand is the sentence. Something's wrong there, but I'm not sure what it is. Nor bring help to our door. Only dashed any chance of it meaning anything for me but tragedy. Should I be saved, I'd be questioned as to my involvement. Should I be pinpointed as the one at fault for what I'd done, I'd be contained and in containment. I'd surely die. With the help of rescue without consequence dashed, I'd try nothing more to fix the situation I'd ended up with. I'd know that the guilt-driven horror I'd face if I managed to figure out a solution would destroy me far before a containment chamber could. The sheer realization that should I not have given up for temporary fleeting anger, for some abstract form of vengeance, and for pure fucking laziness, I wouldn't be trapped in bed, handcuffed to my husband's corpse. Should I have just kept going, then perhaps I wouldn't be alone in the world. If not for my spite, I wouldn't be wanting for the only one who loved me. Once I allowed Carmine to die, nothing would be left for me. Nothing but the sting of broken glass at my neck as my warm blood spilled over his face. Nothing but a last hint of life just as his body began to cool. I'd lay limp on top of his body, drifting into nothingness, with spotty vision and choking breaths. In my last moments, I'd hoped that whoever found our blood-soaked remains made sure everyone at Site 19 knew how much I suffered. Tears and mucus coating my face, I reached over to the bedside, groping for the glass of blood-tinted piss, a testament to my solemn desperation the previous night. Thoughtlessly, I poured my own shame onto the carpet and smashed the glass against the corner of the nightstand. The largest shard cut into my hand as I gripped it, yet I barely noticed the pain, only the blood. I took a deep, shaky breath. Barricada! He called my name, from what felt like beyond the grave, too quietly to cut through the hazy static in my mind and the racing of my heart. I held the sharpest end of the glass in front of me, nearly unsure of whether I ought to turn it inward or outward. Barricada, stop! His voice echoed. My hand shook as I stared at the fateful shard, transfixed by the way the room's minimal light still made it shimmer. For just a fleeting moment, I imagined dragging it across his skin. The shard slipped forward in agreement. Stop! Just talk to me, he asserted, as his hand shot up and wrapped itself around my wrist. He gripped me as tightly as he could muster, still pitifully weak. The shard fell from my grasp, willing me to look down. When I did, he stared up at me, eyes like saucers, their centers black and glassy. Tears dripped from their corners with an authenticity I couldn't determine. I love you, he said, stern voice already weakening. His hand slipped from my wrist, limp on the bed. Please, I, he coughed, breathing growing, shaking and stuttered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please be okay. I really need your help, and you know that. I love you, so please. It was as if I couldn't open my mouth, couldn't perform the movements necessary to do anything but stare in silence, wondering if I was still in my own body. Please, Barricada, I love you. Tell me you. Stop. Stop. I held a hand to his face just a few inches away. I'm alive, right? This is real? Just, I'm not sure. I don't know if we're dead. Are we dead? My ability to speak returned in a flood, while everything around me blurred and slowed. He might have responded, but I couldn't be sure. Segment end. Return to chat. All right. Researcher Wispbug, thank you for your first donation to today's stream as well as being a member. Grab yourself a hot cocoa on your way past the commissary. I just wanted a commissary burger. I got trauma! It's the half hundred shades all over again. Yep. Okay, you can grab a burger. You can grab a burger instead of hot cocoa. But yeah, it's Dr. Frogman, it's not oh thank God it's over. There are 6 chapters. We've only finished 3 of them. This is like the prize people of JamCon. Well, So prize people, you get this long thing of weird, and then you get this surprise hit of ultra violence right at the end. And so it's the same effect on chat at least. Well, that's what happens with any ultra violence. Any of these gore articles. This is certainly an endurance test, I'll give you that. Dr. Sherman, can we throw this tale at SCP-682? It's not a he, it's an it. All anomalies are objects, not people. Please practice proper pronoun parlance protocols at the Foundation. It'd either enjoy it or die of pure disgust. I doubt it would perish at the sign of violence. I would be more on task that it would probably enjoy it. What is your favorite SCP? Intern Bumblecat. I always say my favorite SCP is at the end of stream. It's kind of a tradition of the Site 42 streams. And stream end is approximately a little less than 1 hour away. So you can stick around for that, or you can go to yesterday's stream ending and see it there, or you can donate and ask, and I'll say it immediately in return for your generosity. There are 3 ways that you can find out my favorite SCPs. Make your choice. Hope we can deal with this guy before Dr. Burns is fired and amnesticized. Yeah, no, I know there's an incident log that is in Foundation format at the end of this tale, and I cannot wait to see what the fire suppression department has to say about this one. Wait, Dr. Sherman, we refer to all SCPs as ITs, but what about 054? Intern blocks, I don't know about 054 off the top of my head, but I do know that there are plenty of SCP researchers who are particularly unprofessional in their documentation. Now, 054 refers to the subject and calls it it. So the documentation for 054 properly refers to the anomaly as it. I don't know why you're confused by that one. I'm new to the fandom. I want to know where should I start? Intern Walker. Well, Site 42 streams are usually a great place to learn more about the SCP fandom. During our Q&A sections, that is a great thing. Now, today's a bit weird because we're going over a particularly triggering, gory, violent, squicked out article. So be aware of the content warnings and triggers for those part of the conversation today. But what questions do you have about the SCP fandom? Dr. Sherman, what happened to you at the SCP-5000 reality? Well, Intern Freeman, I am unfamiliar with my whereabouts in the SCP-5000 universe because I do not come up in the logs. So I'm not sure if I was of a high enough cognitive resistance value to resist the anomaly, at which point I was killed by the Foundation. I don't know if I was rank and file, helping the Foundation with the genocide. I'm not sure where I was in that setup. What might be some good SCPs to start learning about? Intern Walker, do you have any friends who are into SCP? Because if so, then ask what SCPs they enjoy, because probably you'll have similar taste to them, being friends with them and all, and therefore you might like the same media. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of posts regarding different SCPs that you should check out for different reasons. In the sidebar of the SCP database, checking out the user-curated lists, there's dozens of lists of articles suggested by SCP Foundation authors. And this is the list if you want scary, this is the list if you want funny, this is the list if you want good stuff to know as a new person. All right. Let's take a breather on the Q&A and move over to the terrible, terrible, gruesome story again. Content warnings back in effect as we go into level 4 of this tale. I spent a few more moments floating in ether until I moved to brace myself against the mattress so I could reach for him. The chain of the handcuffs that connected us jingled, grounding me so fast I thought I'd splatter. I went still, eyes wide. Why? Why do I deserve this? I said in a shaky whisper. The rabid anger was gone in an instant, and the sorrow of my vision of death washed away, only to be transposed to reality. My breathing came in short, ragged gasps. The clink was a harbinger of disaster before me, reminding me that all I'd said was little more than an empty threat. It seemed as though the chain was never there until I needed to escape. My chest tightened as the air was sucked out of the room. Beginning to panic, I bit down on the side of my other hand. The poorly muffled screech I let out startled him. No one else could hear, so I didn't hold back. A futile release of tension wound too tight in bondage. I fruitlessly pulled at the cuff, then froze, staring at it as the rest of the world went blank. I don't think that... He spoke softly, as if afraid to upset me. Where's the key? I turned to him and screamed. Where's the key? I don't... Key? Either he was growling delirious, or he was truly unable to resist the urge to cover his ass. Key! To the handcuffs you put on me! That key! The key! I pulled on the chain so hard it made him hiss in pain. Where the fuck is the key? Fuck, Bashka, he groaned. What? Where is it? Now! Kitchen. I'm probably... Are you fucking kidding me? I raised my voice, covering my face with my hands. What's wrong with you? I shouldn't have... I scoffed at his regret. After years of holding me hostage, I was the one on whom his life depended, and it scared him. My eyes darted around the room looking for something. Anything that could free me so I could finally breathe, so I could think straight without knowing our fates were bound in chain. My mind raced through the list of anything with even a minute chance at success. Bolt cutters, hammer, maybe a saw? Nothing any sane person kept in a bedroom. Even him. There had to be another way. Oh my God, the phones! I whispered under my breath, freezing in place. The landline was gone. Carmine's desk phone had broken a few days prior, so he'd put it in the office. And our cell phones, both of his were charging in the kitchen. As for mine, I remembered it near photographically, sitting on the edge of his desk. The room suddenly felt hot. 4 goddamn phones, none in sight nor in reach. Shouting wouldn't work either, in a sub-basement room with thick concrete walls and a fireproof door. A prison. I was forced to accept that something kinetic would have to happen. Either he'd get up, or I'd have to find a way to break free. No longer able to delude myself, I rattled the cuffs in a futile attempt to drown out the fear with noise. Getting him to move seemed like the easier of the two. He tried to weakly brace his elbow against the bed as I made my first attempt to force him into a sitting position, thus pulling my hand away from his shoulders. I couldn't maneuver him enough to push him up, not unless he held his arm at an angle that I wasn't sure he was physically capable of doing. I held no doubts that getting him to the kitchen would be a Herculean task, but even coaxing him off his back quickly revealed itself to be a Sisyphean task. If he wasn't able to brace himself, I'd only have my own strength at my disposal. Running out of options, I resorted to holding him by the wrists and pulling. Simple force was beyond reach, I learned. Even with the adrenaline coursing through my system, how limp he felt was abnormal, almost paralytic, and I was far too weak to move 240 pounds of dead weight. In my lack of reason, I tried anyways, holding him around the chest and attempting to pull him up to the edge of the bed. It was hard to get leverage, but I somehow got him to budge. Not far, though. It only took a few inches for me to accept its futility. I let out a chuckle as my eyes began to water. I can't do this. I can't. It's impossible. You have to get up. My voice was frantic. I feel so weak. His eyes were half lidded. His normal tan complexion had begun to turn pale white, a stark contrast against the blood coating his lips and teeth, against the droplets of spatter that made their way back to his face when he coughed. I don't give a shit. If you don't, you're dead. We're all dead. Voice cracking, I pulled him by the hand, nails digging into his bruised wrist under the cuff. The pain got his attention. I'm bleeding? What? Am I bleeding? Carmine's voice had started to slur, badly. My heart dropped to my stomach. No, I deadpanned, barely holding myself back from hysterics. He had seen the blood hit my face when he coughed. He had acknowledged it more than once, but he was fading, fast. I could either find a way to get out of the cuffs or not. And despite all that had happened, and all the anger and sorrow and trauma he'd inflicted upon me for what seemed like a lifetime, or not, was death. End of section 4. Returning to the chat. Blue Phantom, thank you for your first donation to today's stream as well as being a member. Grab yourself some steel-cut oatmeal on your way past the commissary. Due to 999 being given soda and stealing soda, then stealing trucks, 999's wandering permissions have been temporarily revoked for a week, but visiting is still allowed. We don't want it getting sad. I think that is very fair. I do not agree with your assessment, or I do not disagree with your assessment. Dr. Sherman, you're going to attend Iris Thompson's birthday tomorrow. It won't be that big, but it shows her an Alpha 9 that we do care. We're going to watch 8914 go through their metamorphosis. I'll have to check my appointment book and research tests for tomorrow, but I'll let you know. I'm gonna pray to Bread Jesus because nobody else can save us now. Uh, Intern Shark Nerd. Bread Jesus can't save you unless you summon it, which requires setting a virgin on fire. So, pick a better Jesus. It's not exactly easy to restock on virgins. Dr. Sherman and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Tale that is very well written. As much as I feel bad for her, this is a damn good tale. Yeah, this is intense to say the least. What you drinking? Intern Jones. I am drinking sparkling water, not sponsored sparkling water. Hydrate, you all. Hydrate. It's good for you. Your body needs water, so drink that shit. So, if SCP-096 were to escape, what would happen? Well, intern Cosmo, I do believe that lots of people would die, and since you're the one mumbling about it, we would blame you for the breach. So, you better hope that's not the case. E for everyone, thank you for sending 2 gold coins to the Containment Hazard Assessment team. I am sure they will appreciate the doubloons. It turns out intern James is offering tea and chocolate to those who require some nerve calming from this very intense tale. So report to intern James in the break room if you require some tea and chocolate to help with your nerves during this very intense reading. This is how interns become researchers. Stay strong, everybody. Oh yeah, the jadedness has to come sometime. You need to be exposed to the terrors. Oh. Speaking of, how about we jump over into section 5 of this tale? Content warnings return for section 5 of Carmine Violante Almost Dies. The cuffs weren't too tight, I bargained. Maybe if I squeezed my thumb to my pinky and forced it, I could slip free. I tried, pulled until my hand turned red with no avail. My denial was a lifeline, perhaps the only thing that kept me sane, and it was slipping through my fingers faster than I could cling to it. Trying only left me with friction burns that would never heal. Once the side of my thumb was rubbed raw by the metal, my lifeline was gone. Escape was hopeless. Survival was hopeless. I couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle the mortal dread, the feeling of failure, the weakness in my body. I I pressed my face into my pillow and screamed, tears and blood soaking the fabric. What gutted me was how it seemed that the universe had chosen his fate for him. He had chosen for both of us the moment that he'd secured that cuff around my wrist, all the ramifications that came with his death, and I'd have no say in the matter. It was, in one word, unfair, just as it had been since the first day we met. If his body gave out and he left me for dead, why should I be the one trapped, forced to endure the results of his control? It was a sick joke. Even in death, he'd still have the last laugh. The final act of his 47 years on Earth would be proving that he owned me. A nagging voice in my head whispered to me. I could still choose his fate, it said. I ignored it, but it repeated, over and over as I stared at the sharp piece of glass still on the bed beside us. It almost shimmered in the dim light of the room. I could hold it in my fist as I had before. It would sting and bleed as my grip tightened, but the consequence would be one born of my choice to hold it. My choice alone. I could use it too if I wanted. I could bring it down upon his throat, staring into his eyes until he begged for his life. His fate would be mine to own. Once again, I pictured his death, now even more blood-drenched. I saw the glimmering shard cutting lines in my hand as its sharp end tore into flesh. The superficial lacerations would mean nothing to me as I watched the ones much larger open across Carmine's throat, revealing the fat and tissue for just a moment before blood obscured all in its path. What flowed from his neck would soon marry what beaded on the surface of my palms. Blood to blood, skin to skin. I pictured him begging for forgiveness as his eyes went dull, him growing pale, then silent. I imagined he would haunt me after his death. Something about that comforted me. I wouldn't be alone so long as he could forgive me. The way the glass stung when I held it felt right somehow. I could almost forget that he couldn't be the one in its sights. Even if I truly had it in me to slit his throat and take pleasure in it, would I take the same pleasure in drawing the shard across my own neck? Perhaps once he was dead, I'd realize that all I did was allow him to drag us both into the gallows. Regret. Thinking about it brought a choking feeling in my throat. It was the cornered irrational logic of an animal facing slaughter that had me dropping the shard of glass and lunging for the nightstand. I nearly ripped the drawer off its tracks, clawing my way through all it held. A tissue box, some pens, a porno mag dated 1998. Nothing of consequence. Continuing my search only led me to a bottle of nail polish and a paperweight that shattered when I pitched it at the wall. I knew that nothing I could find would help, but I tried anyways. That's what you do when the stakes are life and death. By then, he'd stopped talking, drenching the room in deadly silence, save for my sobs and his rattly breaths. I couldn't take it, so I talked to myself. You know, Carmine, I wish you jerked off more. If you did, maybe you'd have lube, or lotion, or something in this fucking nightstand to help me here. Then maybe this would work. I laughed. Now we're both dead, so thanks for that. More pens, a to-do list, a sheet of commissary orders. Nothing, nothing, nothing. I think it's funny how you never needed it, because you trained me. Like a dog. Now I can't go an hour without thinking about fucking. I have to carry around a spare pair of panties, and oh, I needed to live now, they said. He was a barely conscious brick wall, and I had given up restraint long ago. They know you did it to me. They just won't say it. That you raped me for so many years that I became physically dependent on it. I mean, who would tell their boss that? His brows furrowed as he let out a mumbling attempt to form words. I know you don't like that word, but I do. Why don't you just accept it? You know I'll still be here. Cough drops, spare deodorant, empty. I climbed over him to reach the other side of the bed. At least he was still breathing. Not that I cared. You got everything you ever wanted at my expense. Too high, Icarus, don't you think? It took you a week to fuck it up. I let out a cackle. Not just for me. For you, too. I found paperwork I would have looked through should the situation have been less urgent, even if the urgency in question was all but meaningless. It was only fair for someone who hadn't a modicum of privacy for as long as I had. Wonder how much of this is mine. You ever notice how I don't say shit about how you look through all my stuff? I just let you do it because fuck it. punctuated by fuck it. I tossed the stack of papers in the air and watched them flutter to the ground. Something about the way some floated while others fell like rocks made me cry harder. At the bottom of the nightstand, I found a duplicate copy of my Foundation keycard. See? Right there! You knew I wouldn't do anything if I found it. You're so shameless. Just keeping this right here. I guess I'm so pathetic you can bank on it. My stomach twisted. My voice broke. Too bad you won't live long enough to miss me. I tossed the keycard aside and leaned over him, almost close enough for our noses to touch. My long matted hair shrouded us in darkness. Tears fell from my eyes, a few drops landing in his. Should I wait until you die before I kill myself? Or should I do it now? I already gave you everything else. Trembling, I dipped my head down and licked his lips clean of fresh blood, almost as a comfort. I heard that dying of blood loss can feel like being in love, I whispered. He moved his hand weakly, just enough to rub the inside of my wrist with his thumb. In my altered mental state, I almost saw it as permission. My shaky fingers crept back to the glass shard. I lifted myself up on my hands and knees, then brought it to one side of my neck, just above the carotid artery. Death standing so very proximate made me gag. Should I do it over you like this? Maybe if we drink enough of each other's blood, we'll end up in hell together. I cried harder, tipping his head up and licking the blood from the inside of his mouth with the shard still pressed to my neck. His lips and tongue moved just enough to turn my depravity into a horrid perversion of a kiss. He stared up at me with tired eyes. Typo, uncapitalized he, in that last sentence of that paragraph of he stared up at me with tired eyes. Something about it sickened me. I sat up with a start, retracting myself like the touch of his skin burned. For just a moment, I stared ahead, receding into myself as I slowly lowered the sharp edge from my neck. Something about how he never tried to force me to stop had made it hard to breathe. He was woozy from blood loss. But in my heart, it felt like he wanted it. If he was going to die, me following him would be the most coveted consolation prize. It was true. I took a deep, shaky breath, steadied myself on my knees. I closed my eyes for just a second, just to think. I cursed, throwing the shard across the room. It broke when it hit the cement block wall. It would hurt to die regardless of when it happened. Perhaps it should hurt to live too. Scene. We are at the end of section 5. As desk was muted, I need to go back and fix a typo that I found. And then I will return to the chat. Edit section. Append edit. I gotta scroll so far down in the story to find that. Where you at? 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 Small typo fix. I got it. Minor capitalization fix. Save. All right, let me reset to that section for when we go into the next phase. All right, reloading the chat. Intern somebody, thank you for sending 25 100s to the Containment Hazard Assessment team. I am sure they will keep it 25 times as 100 as they currently were. Dogman, thank you for sending a goat trophy to the Containment Hazard Assessment team. I am sure they are proud to be the goats. Intern Frost, thank you for your first donation to today's stream. Grab yourself some hot cocoa on your way past the commissary. Hey, Dr. Sherman, send me good news. I got Jax to trick the computer SCP to lag for the next hour lull. Well, I do like 079 not fussing with us, so that's good. Sleepless Dragon, thank you for sending 5 stars to the Containment Hazard Assessment team. I'm sure they are proud to be a 5-star chat. Intern Tambari, our time check is we are 85 minutes into stream with approximately 30 minutes remaining. And be warned, there are 2 more chapters of this extremely triggering, violent, bloody, gory, rapey, suicide-y, homicide-y tale. This is all the trigger warnings in this tale. I do believe we have time to finish it before stream ends. In fact, let me just message my next meeting so that they know I should be in line to make it. There we go. Message relayed. You're good. Your eye is red. Yeah, I've got a allergy issue in this eye that's very frustrating. That's why I have wet wipes for when I handle the dogs. It is a situation. Dr. Sherman, I cope with key lime pie and I still have some left over. Do you want some? Well, intern Shark Nerd, I am in fact a Florida man, so key lime pie is right up my alley. I will gladly partake. Dr. Sherman, I'm back from testing with a magic marker, and results show writing stereo madness on a subject's arm results in high aggression to anything that makes stereo. That makes stereo? What does that mean? That, like, manufactures radios? If I sacrifice myself to SCP-096, do I get a trophy for my grave? No. Why would you do that? That is a... Why would... Huh? Are you thinking that if you look at its face and summon it back that you'll get some sort of accolades? Because no. We have teams that can just go pick it up. Come on. Yes, as Puppet Boy and Desk said, it's the Darwin Award that you receive. Okay. Let's make sure we get this done. I'm going into the next section of this terrible, terrible story. I will read Intern Frost dono, though. Intern Frost, thank you for donating again. 079 doesn't like Kane, lol. He can't leave, though. 079 is a computer program. It is not a he or a she. It is an it. All anomalies and containments are its. Please practice proper pronoun parlance protocols of the Foundation. It can't leave, though, because of Kane's firewall protecting the circus. Well, that does make things a little bit difficult. Remember, 079 is an advanced AI for 70s computers. It's not exactly high tech. It's anomalous for its time, but it's not exactly high-tech compared to what we have today. Sentient, yes, but not that big a deal, actually. All right. Section 6 of the horrid, deeply triggering tale. Content warnings abound. Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. You saw nothing, I repeated, mindlessly. It was difficult, but I managed to roll him on his side before climbing over to his side of the bed. The weight of hopelessness lifted just enough to breathe. I stepped into the remnants of the shattered cup without thinking, with half of one foot meeting the cold, wet spot on the carpet. I grimaced, but the pane of glass cutting into my feet barely registered. The plug of the room's only light source, a heavy brass lamp, was swiftly removed. Aside from a crack through the door that let in dim light from the kitchen, the room was plunged into darkness. I worked quickly, unscrewing the light bulb and tossing it in a drawer, nearly tearing the shade from the lamp. With his limp arm still supported by the bed, my cuff hand just barely made it to the nightstand. Not close enough, but I managed to pull it just a few more inches. My breaths came fast and ragged. What I was about to do would surely work at some point. My concern was a question of how far I'd have to go. If you pull my fucking arm, I'm killing you, I hissed at him, wondering in the back of my mind if he still saw it as an empty threat. Honey, Carmine whispered, barely loud enough to be audible. I'm saving your ass, so you better stay still. I placed my shaky left hand flat on the nightstand. Perhaps it was better that I was barely able to see it. This was no game of precision, it was one of survival, one of brute force. I had endured agony to preserve my life the previous night, and I could, no, had to do it again. Pathetically, like fantasy that mortality would finally force Carmine to change was the last thing to cross my mind before I swung the heavy lamp base like a hammer. I brought it down hard on the widest part of my hand without another thought. Adrenaline blocked most of the pain, but the first blow nearly made me faint from shock. I thought I'd scream more than I did. Carmine flinched, instinctively pulling his arm to his body. Stop it, I shouted. I fucking told you. I brandished the lamp like a weapon, as if I were placing a target on the side of his skull. Slowly processing the ramifications, he inched back to his prior position. I took a deep breath and swung for my hand again. The second shock registered less than the first. On the third blow, I heard a sickening crunch that sent shivers down my spine. I didn't notice the pain as much as I did the nausea that brought it. 2 more hits, just to be certain, I reasoned. I learned to anticipate the horrid sound of breaking bone. God damn it! I exclaimed, catching my breath and dropping the lamp to the floor. I reached to my hand without pause, anticipating the pain as I manually squeezed my hand until my thumb and pinky sat parallel. The pain was orders of magnitude more intense than before, radiating up to my shoulder and bringing tears to my eyes. The most nausea-inducing part of it was without question the unnatural flexibility of my broken hand. The way its flaccid nature coincided with the horrid friction of bone on bone was unbearable. I retched, barely able to pull at my limp, compressible fingers as I got into position to pull. Properly grasping the cuff with one hand was awkward, but I managed to get what I hoped was a somewhat solid grip. I took a deep breath and cleared my mind. Once the Trevors stopped, I forged ahead. I held my breath, anticipated the agony, then pulled hard. Escape evaded me, but I knew it was within reach. Perhaps the way I'd held the cuff had obstructed its motion? Determined not to lose hope, I worked slower. Even then, the metal still caught on my swollen skin, about a half-inch further than my first attempt. Nerve pain shot up my arm like lightning, but all I felt was dejected, hopeless anger. I flattened my hand on the cool surface of the nightstand and reached down for the lamp and felt its weight in my hand. Like insects skittering over my skin, I felt blood or semen or God forbid what else drip down my leg. On any other day, it was a natural state for me to live carrying the slippery remnants of concupiscence. 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 A word I don't know. On the SCP Wiki? More likely than you think. Concupiscence. Meaning an intense, often sensual longing or strong desire, generally defined in theology as the human inclination or tendency to sing. To sin, not sing. I have a concupiscence to sing, but most people it's to sin. Got it. As I was saying in the story, to live carrying the slippy remnants of concupiscence inside my body, almost as if it had belonged. It was normal for it to emerge carrying a pinkish red tint. I found it so paradoxical that a fluid so corrupting could be what kept me alive. The thought consumed me, for I knew that, given the context, it should burn me instead. Just as how my only chance at survival shouldn't be the compounding of pain and wretched self-injury. Both cases were no matter of what should be, only what was. As I made the connections in my mind, the urge to recoil at their conclusion was overwhelming. Regardless, I heard the lamp hit the floor with a thunk. Smearing every slimery, congealed drop of the cloudy, red-tinted amalgamation over my wrist and down my hand was utterly wretched. I'll say, I feel a gag in my throat. Ugh. The viscous atrocity burned where it seeped into the cuts on my hands. It smelled like sour metal and visceral shame. It made me gag and turn my head when my mind forced me to imagine how it tasted. Stop it. You stop it. Ugh. There. We're almost done. We're almost to the end. No matter how I tried, I couldn't escape the thought of it coating my tongue and throat until my stomach revolted. At least the thick saliva brought forth by my attempts not to vomit didn't go to waste. Wanting nothing more than for the nightmare to end, I practiced exerting force with one hand and keeping the one in the cuff limp, just to ensure I didn't sabotage myself. The thought of bringing the lamp down upon my hand hard enough to break bone, as liquid indiscretion formed spatter from the force, was a potent motivator. Carmine looked up at me with his glassy eyes as another weak cough poured blood over his chin. My hand shook as I changed my position, facing the bed with a foot braced against his wrist and my free hand on the side of the cuffs opposite the chain. It felt as though my life flashed before my eyes in the moments before I started to pull. I took a deep breath, searching my mind for any conceivable method to sequester myself from the fear and the agony. At the time, all I could think of was to talk. You remember how you were supposed to meet with the director Riker tomorrow? I think you'll have to reschedule. Yeah. I let out a shaky, pained laugh. Obviously, shit. I don't know, but I heard that they might be adding a new cafeteria to A Block, if that's what it's about, the meeting. That'd be cool. Right now, everyone has to walk all the way down to C to eat. They always, they always talk about how much it sucks. Do you know about that? You probably do. I heard about it yesterday. So how do you feel? Not great right now, of course, but I'm fine. I'm really fine, actually. Except, section end, and I assume that's when the, pull takes place. Site 42 staff, we're taking a short Q&A before we go to the final section. Short Q&A before the final section. Intern Odysseus, thank you for your first donation to today's stream. Grab yourself some bacon on your way past the commissary. In my softball game, I got hit by the pitch. Ow. Yeah, unfortunate. I hope you're okay. Frogman, the pull? Yeah, what I'm imagining is after our main character broke her thumb area several times to make it fit within the handcuff she was pulling through, that ending, she's got her legs up against Carmine's body and his arms so she can pull her hand out of the handcuff. And so she's distracting herself with idle chatter. That way, when the actual pull takes place, that's probably going to be painful to the point of unconsciousness or something. Lanny the Demon Angel, we are currently reading a tale from This Is My Jam Con with so many content warnings. It's so gory and gross and violent and rapey and oh, geez Louise. A very good reason for the Fire Suppression Department and the Ethics Committee to exist, because people like this exist. Whatever the hell going on here, it does need an incident report. But okay, Site 42 staff, I do in fact need to get out of here on time. So this short Q&A, we will return and finish the story, and then we will have Q&A until the end of stream. So, here is our grand finale. So, we are now in a Foundation incident report. The format is quite clear. And so this incident report is our ending. Let's see what happens from the Department of Parasexology. I don't even think I knew we had that department. Unless SCP-6969, Overseer Council. No, does not mention the Department of Parasexology. So I did not even knew we had such a thing. Sheesh. All right, content warnings active. Here we go. Department of Parasexology, confidential incident report. Background. On July 15, 2002, the Department of Emergency Medicine response team was called to the on-site quarters of Deputy Director Carmine Violante and his wife, Level 3 researcher Barricada Violante. Upon arriving at the scene, C. Violante, the patient, was found in a semi-conscious state, laying on his back with a pair of handcuffs attached to his right wrist. Observing the scene, blood was found on the carpet, bed, and on the patient's clothing. He was observed actively bleeding from the mouth, and it was reported that he had previously vomited blood. Medical attention in situ was not performed, as the patient was able to be rapidly transported to the A Block infirmary for major emergency care. He was found to be in a state of mild hypovolemic shock. Following surgical intervention and multiple blood transfusions, he is expected to make a full recovery. B. Violante, who had called for help, was also found with blood on her face, abdomen, legs, and hands, some appearing to have dried. She was also in a state of injury. Most notably, her left hand was bruised, swollen, and the skin inflamed. It was not known at the time, but it had been subject to multiple self-inflicted fractures. B. Violante appeared to be in a state of shock/depersonalization. It was urged to seek immediate medical care. She was not responsive, stating that she would not leave until she had a chance to bathe. Responders suggested that B. Violante should remain with the patient, given their status as husband and wife. She allegedly stated that he would not want others to see her in the state she was in. Approximately 75 minutes later, she was admitted to A Block Infirmary, after which surgical intervention was necessary to preserve functionality of her left hand. Note, responders were initially reprimanded for their decision to permit B. Violante to remain in the housing unit alone. All demerits were later overwritten by C. Violante. Response. B. Violante was questioned later that day and stated that herself and the patient had been engaging in unconventional sexual conduct the previous night. Allegedly, they had both fallen asleep without removing the pair's handcuffs that had been used within these acts. B. Violante was awoken several hours later, near the initial onset of emergent situation. C. Violante has since confirmed the validity of her statements. Additional information. Approximately 48 hours after C. Violante's admittance to the infirmary, additional information was provided regarding his wife's conduct during the incident. Following an analysis of his story conducted by the Department of Parapsychology, B. Violante was summoned for a compulsory mental health evaluation. Pursuant to multiple interviews conducted throughout the following week, alongside further information provided by her husband, B. Violante was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. In accordance with Foundation policy, she was placed on leave at that time. While a period of inpatient mental health care would be required under normal circumstances, B. Violante was issued a waiver, so long as she attends all scheduled counseling sessions. Addendum written by Dr. Kare Landon, Level 3 researcher. Note, this addendum was compiled in conjunction with the Department of History, Subdepartment of Davic Anomalies. Background. On July 15, 2002, C. Violante received emergency medical care for a Class 4 internal hemorrhage after engaging in sadomasochistic sexual acts with his wife, B. Violante, a member of the species of interest 140, Homo sapiens deva. It is the opinion of the Subdepartment of Davic Anomalies that the hemorrhage suffered by C. Violante was the result of his wife's elevated aptitude at performing acts of blood thaumaturgy. Analysis. The reported acts that occurred on the night of the incident stood out to researchers as being notably similar to an old, seldom performed power transfer ritual referred to as transfer of seed, transfer of life in historical texts. The following is a summary of the research conducted pursuant to this incident. Discordant aspects. Historically, the ritual required 2 other priestesses to complete, but this requirement may have been overcome by Site 19's inherently elevated Hume and Akiva radiation. A rune representing the process of exsanguination would have been carved in the chest of the sacrifice, from which their blood would flow into a ceremonial bowl. As this did not occur, the majority of C. Violante's hemorrhaging was internal in nature. At the conclusion of the ritual, the blood of the deceased sacrifice is to be ingested by those performing it. Should C. Violante have expired, and his blood have been consumed post-death, the associated power transfer would have potentially occurred. Coinciding aspects. At the time of the act, as well as during her escape, B. Violante reported experiencing strong emotions, including desires to harm C. Violante physically, in conjunction with the urge to ingest his blood. This urge was allegedly so strong that she had no choice but to relent. When questioned, she did admit to consuming C. Violante's blood during the period before medical intervention took place, though she did not cause further injury to obtain it. After doing so, she reported a decreased pain response. Historically, the priestess performing the sacrifice needed to be menstruating. While B. Violante does not menstruate, she had begun to bleed vaginally at some point earlier that evening. Upon being asked multiple times, B. Violante admitted to reaching orgasm during the event in question, directly mirroring a necessary element of the rite's successful performance. Restricted access, segment marked for deletion. For a chosen sacrifice to allow for the successful completion of the ritual, they must be an individual who has caused significant immutable harm to a member of species of interest 140. Additional information, restricted access, segment marked for deletion. Okay, well, I have access here, or I should at least. Opened. Further context found on pages 900, 912, and 924 to 926 of A Chronicle of the Devas has raised concerns among researchers that C. Violante may be irreparably marked as an incomplete human sacrifice. This information suggests that should B. Violante expire for any reason, C. Violante would as well, regardless of his condition at the time. Confidential research is currently being conducted. End log. Okay, that was intense. That was a lot. Well, it was certainly an evocative fucking story. Yes, blocks as well as everyone else who wants it. You have free access to cuddle SCP-999 as long as you do not let it out of its cell so it cannot steal soda pop and or trucks. You may hang out with it in its situation. Whew. So, while that is very deep and disgusting and just a lot, man. You got to understand how people who go through abuse themselves use this kind of imagery to cope with what happened to them. This is a very therapeutic form of writing sometimes. And so there is a different touch between people who do this for kink and people who do this for trauma such. And I'm not saying either one is good or bad. Good or bad is in the eye of the beholder, and how you read it, how you, what the purpose of writing it, all sorts of stuff. But sheesh, what do we got in the discussion on that? Also, this is technically for This Is My Jam Con, but voting closes in literally a few days, so more entering for posterity at this point. My song was Reptile by 9 Inch Nails. And of course, while I do know some 9 Inch Nails, Reptile is not one of the songs I know. I don't know the song Reptile, and therefore I don't know, but the people in the discussion are saying that this has done the song justice. So, woof. Intern Blood, how appropriate your name is. Thank you for your flower to the containment hazard assessment team. I'm sure they need something pretty at this point. Woo, Site 42 staff. We are now basically at the end of stream because I got a meeting to get to. We barely made it through the stream. That was a lot. Intern Ethics Committee, you're here at the end of stream. You can watch the VOD. But wow, that was a lot. Woo. So, Site 42 staff, reminder, now at the end of stream, I tell you guys my favorite SCPs. Although I am not going to say that the SCPs I personally wrote are my favorites. That would be narcissism and cheating. I would say that if you want to read the SCPs I personally wrote, you can go to the Sherm's author page in Site 42 Hub on the SCP database. There you can see the SCPs I personally wrote, as well as contributed voice lines or sound effects to. And while you're on my author page, one tab over, you'll find a list of links. Links that a lot of people ask about in chat, but then they just aren't clever enough to find, which is sad for them, but not for you. You'll find those links. And when you do, you'll be able to become a Patreon patron or a YouTube channel member to donate to us monthly, a Ko-Fi or a YouTube Super Chat to donate to us one at a time, or you can use the last remaining 2 days to get your Dr. Sherman plushie before they are gone forever. 2 more days remaining. Get it now at the link in the description, the link in the chat. Get it before time runs out. If you can support Site 42 through buying merch or donating, we greatly appreciate your generosity. But if you can't, don't fret either. We understand starving artists in the SCP community. But you can still help us out by being a member of Mobile Task Force Site 42, codenamed the Signal Boosters. When you like, share, subscribe, comment, chat, clip us, make edits, make memes, you are helping Signal boost our signal and the signals of those who we support. The SCP Wiki and its authors and artists, the filmmakers, animators, game devs, merch makers, podcasters. You are helping us to make bigger and better SCP content in the future, and we thank you for your service. Now, without further ado, my favorite SCPs in no particular order are SCP-3999, SCP-3043, SCP-008-J, SCP-Spooky-J, SCP-5031, SCP-5175, SCP-5320, SCP-898. Content warning on the last one's a rough read. Speed round. 3999-3043-008-J, Spooky-J, 5031, content warning on the last one's a rough read. Don't you have blue hair? And why does the plushie have brown hair? So I mostly have brown hair, but I have streaks in the front. And so the plushie also has streaks, so you can color in your own Dr. Sherman hair color streaks along the way, as you please. I think that's a pretty cool feature. Ryder, thank you for sending 5 press Fs to pay respects. I'm sure the chat will feel respected. Amber, thank you for sending a 2, 3, 4, 5 floating hearts to the Containment Hazard Assessment team. I'm sure they will feel the love. And now, Site 42 staff, remember, whatever you do, if that article stressed you out, take care of yourselves. Drink some water, get some rest, watch something nice, eat something that makes you happy. Do something to take care of yourself after going through a harrowing story like that. And now, Site 42 staff, that is the end of our Dr. Sherman's Office Hours, a subsidiary of the anomalous broadcast from Site 42. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. Be safe, be well, and as always, secure, contain, protect. I'll see you in the next video or stream. Intern Bubbles, thank you for sending a doubloon to the Containment Hazard Assessment team. I'm sure they appreciate the spending money. You let me violate you. You let me desecrate you. You let me penetrate you. You let me complicate you. Help me, I broke apart my insides. Help me, I've got no soul to sell.
Help me, the only thing that works for me. Help me get away from myself. I wanna fuck you like an animal. I wanna feel you from the inside. I wanna fuck you like an animal. My whole existence is flawed. You bring me closer to God. The credit song is Closer by 9 Inch Nails, one of the very few 9 Inch Nails songs I actually know to go along with the article. Be safe, be well, Site 42 staff, and as always, secure, contain, protect, and I'll see you in the next video or stream.